I remember talking as a child was one thing vividly with my mom, telling her I was going to grow flowers is something she reminds me of when we talk about my career. Then being at CSU and walking into the greenhouses and being at school for chemical engineering, I had decided at that point I'm going to change and start growing plants for the rest of my life. That was the first time I thought, okay, hey, I'll make a career out of actually, instead of smoking weed, I'm going to grow weed. I'm not just going to grow weed, I'm going to try to grow a lot of weed. At the same time in 2008 and 2009, which was pretty unique when I started going to school, was Colorado created the sales tax license and the entity of a dispensary. You could go buy flower, get your medical red card from back in the day, and shop and kind of experience what growing cannabis was like for the first time as well. That coincided with seeing greenhouses, seeing plant cultivation, and then also going to school in Colorado. In classes and classwork, that was the first time I was ever exposed to actually making fertilizer, transitioning from a chemical engineering to just, hey, this is a bag of calcium nitrate, or these are chelates and these are how they work, and you're gonna feed this petunia crop or these daisies or Easter lilies or whatever it's going to be, but this is now how you make a fertilizer to then feed this crop. At the same time, I was begging a guy across the street from the campus to get a job in the cannabis industry and to work as a bud tender or sweep the floor, clean the toilets, do anything I possibly could and get a job working both in the greenhouse space and then also in the cannabis industry. That was the first time I'd ever thought about fertilizer at that level. Was probably into my second or third year into college, and then also as being a bud tender and starting to help on the cultivation side with a guy named Eli. Then meeting Egan actually coincided slightly before that, probably at the beginning of college, and got more serious.
Man, the early days, lots of OSB plywood, lots of exposed drywall, lots of water on the floor, to now a completely commercialized industry with an extremely high standard of professionalism and cleanliness and all of the above. Started cultivating as caregivers early on in Colorado with your medical card and the plants that you were allowed and allocated by the state. And then the high plant count game shifted. Instead of individuals being allowed 6 plants, we're all of a sudden allowed 90 plants. So you're the size of your garden, and what you were legally allowed to do, or legally allowed to do in the gray area of the law, you know, tenfold expanded your garden based on the approved plant counts you were allowed to have. You know, when you used to cultivate 20 plants in a rotation, all of a sudden you're looking for warehouse space, landlords that would allow you to do what you were about to do without an actual license attached to it. You just went full speed into it as fast as you could. You were growing, you know, huge plants typically on the floor, staked out with plant stakes, no trellis, open fixtures, irrigating with unfiltered water, basically tap water, domestic supply water, following feed charts of every fertilizer, and then making your own recipes and mixing products and what you were learning from other people and what was giving them that extra flavor or that extra yield. So then immediately you started going and just testing everything. And really a lot of the times in the early days, there was no control. You weren't controlling your variables because you were trialing too many things at the same time. You were trying to expand, but you couldn't really put your finger on what was giving you that extra quality or that extra yield. Looking at base elements and base inputs and what's really supporting your crop growth and what isn't. What's just the extra stuff that you can completely get rid of, right? So then, you know, going from more of a black market system as I was getting into taking this to a whole different game of looking at what your cost was. Fertilizer was always something that we were spending tons of money on. So again, back to reducing everything that we don't need. What are the base inputs? What's the simplest program we can use to grow the best product? That mindset and process just continued to evolve year over year into what finally became Front Row when we learned how to mix salts versus just mixing liquids. And we were taking raw inputs, different ratios and different blends for different stages of growth, and then figuring out like, man, how could we blend these together? Which products are necessary to be together and which products aren't? Having catastrophic failure by mixing the wrong products based on not paying attention. You made a big mistake on accident based on just not reading the bag properly and almost looking identical and being a white powder dumping out of a bag like you didn't think you were doing anything wrong. So then the thought of how can we create something that we have the ability to make, I don't know, can I use the word dummy proof? It was how can we blend something together and make it colored so you know you're mixing the red bag or the blue bag or the green bag, and you're not gonna make the same mistake that cost you 20 acres of production. We understood what the cannabis crop needed in all morphological stages of growth for proper nutrition. By reducing the number of additives and being able to blend the appropriate parts together that are compatible, that don't create precipitates, that don't create fallout, if mixed appropriately, there isn't a better product. Everything else, oh, you wanna do this, you need this product. Oh, you wanna increase your terps, add this product. You wanna increase your yield, add this product. Front row, I mean, we created our 3 base products and have a few additional products as the necessary needs of what is needed and what is not. There's a lot of, call it snake oil, call it products that come out, they come and go. They're here this year, they're gone, you never hear of them again. At the same time, there's a lot of other great products and great companies doing what we do, you know? We're not the only one, but we pride ourselves in the quality of the products that we make, the fact that we are trying to not just sell a bunch of extra products for the sake of selling people extra products. We're giving you everything you need and nothing you don't. And then at the end of the day, it's a partnership. You know, we're not just gonna sell you something and then say, see you later, call me when you need it again. You know, we have a small team that is super passionate about their client base and how well they treat their customers, how often they follow up with them, and the support they give them when potentially they're having other needs or other issues in their facility that aren't fertilizer related, but we've got a team of skilled cultivators that have gone through all of these challenges before, and we could probably help you find a solution that is completely unrelated to fertilizer based on just being your fertilizer partner and the relationship that we cherish with all of our clients.